I'm Mark Bell, and we're here in Sebastopol, California, and today we're going to talk about getting stronger. At one point in my life, I used to actually be pretty strong. When I was about 20 years old, I did a powerlifting meet. Oh, you know what? I must have been older than 20. I must have been like 22 or 23. I did a powerlifting meet out in Venice Beach, and I just did I think I did a push-pull. I remember doing the pull part, but I don't remember doing the push part. But I deadlifted 633, and I weighed in for that meet. I was trying to weigh in for that meet at 198 pounds, and I was successful in doing so, but I think I competed at like 210 or something like that. You know, you bring your body weight back up, right? So I did a 633-pound deadlift. Years and years and years and years and many years later, I ended up with a 766-pound deadlift, but that was with the use of PEDs, and also that was in a deadlift suit / squat suit. I pulled the weight sumo, which is cheating, right? And in addition to that, I weighed a lot more. So I think I weighed like probably 280 or 290 at that point. So 100-pound difference in body weight, right? A 633 deadlift versus a 766 deadlift. Now, I realize the number is pretty big, but the progress is not very good. So getting stronger is a very difficult thing to do, no matter how hardcore you are or no matter the approach that you give to it. Now, deadlift-wise, I was never really all that gifted in the deadlift, but I did try to work very hard on it. When it came to like the bench press and came to some of the other lifts, I was able to make a little bit better progress. But my main point here is that I feel like you have a window of time where you're just simply not going to get any stronger. This also happens with people that get really heavy. You have a maximum capacity for being a certain fatness, if you will. Somebody could get to, you ever see my 600-pound life? It's like, why don't they weigh 700 pounds? Why don't they weigh 800 pounds? Why don't they not weigh 900 pounds? Your body kind of gets oversaturated, you know, and when you're, from a powerlifting perspective, when you're trying to get as strong as possible, I feel like the human body kind of has this kind of magic amount of time to where you can reach your potential. And I think that may be true of any sport too. It may be true of swimming, it may be true of track, it may be true of a lot of different sports. But when it comes to strength sports, what I've seen is people get really strong in about a 4 or 5 year span. Now, it doesn't mean they can only get strong in a 4 or 5 year span, but it's a 4 or 5 year span of being like mature and also knowing what you're doing. So when somebody starts lifting at 14, maybe not a whole lot happens at 14. Maybe not a whole lot happens until they're like 17 or 18, and then they get into that bubble that I was just talking about. But some of these people that you see on Instagram right now who are just insanely strong, how much longer will they be really strong? Now, I want to kind of back things up a little bit here and say that even though you can get strong in this 4 or 5 year span, and I'm talking about insanely strong, I'm talking about that next level of strength. Larry Wheels, Hafthor Bjornsson, myself when I was powerlifting, I'd even throw into that category, even though I don't think I'm anywhere near the strength that those guys are. But I'm just talking about in terms of maxing out your own body's capabilities and getting to that next level. It takes a minimum of a decade to get there because you need a couple of years of kind of messing around. The amount of years that it takes you to get to the top in terms of your strength, it might be able to be skewed a little bit by taking some PEDs. It might be able to get skewed by 2 or 3 years or so. But you only have a finite amount of time to get strong. And so if you have started strength training already, if you are already involved in lifting and powerlifting and weightlifting, strongman, whatever it is, then you need to get your butt moving and you need to get on a program that's going to be effective, and you need to get your learn on right now. And that's probably why you tuned into this video. You need to start to educate yourself a lot. One of the main principles of the Russian lifters, and everyone knows how dominant the Russian weightlifters were throughout the 80s, throughout the 70s and 80s. The Russian weightlifters were unbelievable. They were really unstoppable. And one of the principles that they had, one of the main principles they had was called the principle of awareness. Those athletes knew why they were doing certain things. And so if you want to be strong, then you have to have a good understanding of why you're doing certain things. Strength can be kind of specific. I can say, hey man, you got to do like a leg curl or whatever, right? But strength does not really work that way. Strength is really a lot more general. And strength is, it's more of the big movements. It's more of the compound movements. Which movements are going to tap into the central nervous system the most? And then occasionally, which exercises are going to tap into the central nervous system the least, so we don't cause a lot of damage. And I think that that's the case when it comes to some of the assistance exercises. Barbell exercises are effective because they're barbell movements. Assistance exercises, in my opinion, are only super effective because they're not barbell movements, not because they're independently worth a whole lot on their own. I think that the mental exercise that you can have of thinking about your missed attempt at bench press while you're doing a tricep extension, I think can be really useful. And I think, yeah, you could be training the tendons and ligaments a little bit, but I don't think that's where your money's at. I think your money's on that bench press. I think your money is in that squat and variations of a squat, variations of a bench press, and variations of a deadlift. So I get asked all the time, how do you get stronger? Well, what do you want to get stronger in? Whatever it is that you want to get stronger in, we need to spend a lot of time in those positions. Let's say, for example, that you want to get your squat stronger. And let's say that you're very weak at the bottom of the squat. Well, we have to figure out, how do we spend a lot more time at the bottom of that squat? Okay, well, we're going to do many different forms of squats. We're going to do a regular squat. We're going to do a box squat. We're going to do a pause squat. We are going to work other movements that maybe simulate a squat. Even like a front squat would work really well also. We're going to do lunges. We're going to do a lot of movements for the legs that are going to kind of simulate you doing a squat. But the further that we get away from a squat, the less relevant it is to your overall strength. It could be relative to your strength and your health over a long period of time, because it can help keep you healthy. Doing single leg movements, a lot of those things are going to be really beneficial to keeping the knees healthy and keeping the ligaments and the tendons and those things healthy. But it's going to be where you're going to make your money and where you're going to be able to get the most bang for your buck is on the actual squat itself. Where you're going to be able to improve your strength is on the actual deadlift itself. Now, sets and reps and rest intervals and how frequently should we train? This is a giant mess, right? This could be all over the place. There's so many different strategies that we can use. But if we go back to what I said in the beginning, that strength is going to be a little bit more general than it is going to be specific, I would say that a great idea is for you to bench press about once a week, squat about once a week, deadlift about once a week. Once you start to get used to those movements, you can start to add in some more training. If you're new, it doesn't really make sense for you to all of a sudden out of nowhere start bench squatting and deadlifting 3 times a week, which might be what you want to get yourself to at some point. Sometimes bench pressing 3 times a week can be a little too much on the joints. Sometimes deadlifting 3 times a week can be a little overkill as well. Squatting seems to be a really good base movement for a lot of different sports, a lot of different activities, and even in terms of powerlifting. So a lot of powerlifters will squat multiple times a week. How many sets, how many reps should we be doing? Normally, when it comes to strength training, the amount of sets that you do are high and the amount of reps that you do are relatively low. When it comes to trying to figure out a way to get stronger, we are going to stay within a rep range of 1 to 5 repetitions. We're going to stay in a set range of probably 5 to 10 sets, depending on what the given workout is calling for. If you're going to compete, if you have a desire to compete, what will happen is as you get closer to competition, your reps will go down. Your overall amount of work will go down, which is referred to as volume. You're going to start driving your sets down. You're going to start taking out some of the assistance exercises, some of the accessory work. But what I want to say about the assistance stuff and the accessory work is that a little bit of it can go a long way. And one of the things that is kind of missed with accessory work and assistance exercises is, look, man, don't do them if you're going to bullshit them. If you're going to just go through the motions, then there's really not a lot of reasons to do them. A larger muscle can oftentimes be a stronger muscle, and so that's what the assistance exercises are for. Remember earlier I said I don't think they're really worth a whole lot. Well, I don't really think they're worth a whole lot if you're bullshitting them. But if you're training them hard and you're getting after it and you only do like 2 or 3 of them, I think they are highly beneficial. And I think they can help make you more jacked. Someone who's more jacked, someone who's got more cushion for the pushing is going to be able to lift a lot more weight. Somebody that's got big forearms and big arms, my arms are probably only like 17 or 18 inches now. They used to be like 23, 22, 23 inches. But I weighed 330 pounds. My forearm was probably bigger than my forearm was probably bigger than my bicep. It might be bigger than my bicep now. Well, my forearms were massive at that time, and I would take my forearm and I would drop my forearm down onto my bicep for my benching, and I'd drop my tricep down onto my lat. Well, you can't do any of that stuff unless you're really jacked. One way you're going to get jacked is through training really heavy, just through doing the powerlifting movements anyway. But another way you're going to do it is through doing some direct work, some assistance work, some bodybuilding exercises. So for the first movements, we're going to use 1 to 5 repetitions. As we move into second and third, a secondary exercise, and what I like to call a third-dary exercise. The second exercise is what I like to refer to as a secondary barbell movement. Secondary barbell movement, now we're going to do maybe 3 sets, 5 to 8 reps, something like that. And the third movement that we do for the day is going to be something where we're going to increase the reps a little bit more and maybe do 3 or 4 sets of like 12 to 15 reps. But when you're doing those, it's like you might do a BS set or 2 just to get the movement down, and then you're going all in. You're going as hard as you possibly can. Some of those might even be to failure, which most powerlifters don't ever train to failure, but training to failure on stuff that you're trying to get hypertrophy for makes a lot of sense because that's what bodybuilders do. So I'm just going to give you a program right here on the spot, which is kind of hard to just give a program like this in this format, in this way. But I'm just going to give it to you here because it doesn't have to be complicated. It has to be, what it has to be is it has to be repeatable. And that's why you don't want to spend too much time in the gym. One of the biggest attributes and one of the biggest things that's going to help you to be big is going to be able to figure out ways to recover from these workouts. You need food to recover and you need sleep. You need to get your ass out of the gym. The workouts have to be short. They have to be concise, they got to be precise, and you got to be obsessed with them if you want to be strong. 1,080 squat, an 854-pound bench, a 766-pound deadlift, still the highest total ever in California. No one's ever beaten it. I said it many years ago, and no one's come to take the title away yet. And a lot of that has to do with just the amount of work and how obsessed I was with everything. So, bench press. To get stronger at the bench press, we're going to utilize the bench press. Let's do some benching and let's just do a good old-fashioned 5x5. Secondary barbell movement is going to be a close grip bench press. Let's do 3 sets of 8. And let's pause on the chest for a second. So that's that exercise. Close grip bench. Your hands are just like maybe touching the smooth part of the bar. They don't have to be like together, but just touching the smooth part of the bar. And you do 3 sets of around 8 reps or so. And the next movement after that will be, let's see, we did a bench and we did a close grip bench press. Let's do some dumbbells. Handle some heavy ass dumbbells. Remember I said now we're trying to keep the rep range in a 12 to 15 range. Do a few warm-ups, move around some lighter weights, and then have at it. Go at it as hard as you can for one good hard set on an incline dumbbell bench press. And then if you feel like you got a little extra energy in you, you could even do a dumbbell flat bench after that. But then get your ass out of the gym. Seriously. You don't need to do tricep push downs. You don't need to do a bunch of push-ups. You don't need to get a burn before you leave the gym. This is strength training. All we have to do is send our body a message that we are trying to stimulate the body to get stronger. The central nervous system has to tell everybody else, hey, guys, here's what we're doing for the next couple weeks. We're lifting some heavy ass weights. And the next time you come in, you need to lift heavier. Get yourself a lifting journal. Write down what you did. because it's going to be really important that you remember what to do next time. I had a journal for many, many, many years. I don't worry about it as much anymore because now I can kind of keep track and I can remember at least some of the stuff that I did, some of the key lifts that I did. I wouldn't be so worried about the dumbbell work. I wouldn't be so worried about some of the assistance exercises as much, although I'm still trying to get stronger on those, but there's so many variables that leave you weaker on those that you can't really always add up and equate for those things. But on those first movements, you don't have an excuse. You should be strong as hell. Try to increase your strength a little bit each week. When it comes to a squat, we're going to do a regular squat and we're going to do a 5x5 for the squat as well. The next exercise that we'll do is we'll do 3 sets of 10. And we'll go heels elevated and you're trying to tap into the quads a little bit more, trying to get a little bit more depth. This is going to be brutal. We really only need one good set of 10 though. So, you know, do a set just to kind of feel it out because it's different than the regular squat that you did for the day. And then, you know, do another set where it's a little bit more on the medium side and then do a set that's kind of all out on the heavier side. And then the third exercise that you're going to do when you're done with those squats is you can do some walking dumbbell lunges would be great because that way you get a little bit of single leg work. That's your workout. Again, get the hell out of the gym. If you wanted to, you could finish off with some stuff to kind of stabilize the stomach, keep the stomach really strong. The next thing we're going to do is going to be a deadlift. And you could do this like Monday, Wednesday, Friday or something like that. You can kind of put the squat on a Monday and, well, everyone benches on Monday, right? You can set it up whatever way you want, but you just want to make sure that the squats and deadlifts have enough space between the two of them so that way you don't kill yourself and you're not super sore. When it comes to deadlifting, do your deadlifts and do a 5x5 on that as well. I'm just keeping it super simple. You could do 6 sets of 4 or 4 sets of 6. I mean, it's all kind of the same thing. You're all ending up with 20 plus reps that are going to be pretty heavy. What weights should we select for these? I don't even think I mentioned that part. You want your last rep of your last set to look like the first rep of your first set, or at least close to it. And that means that there's no breakdown in form and technique. So if you're a 500-pound deadlifter, you're probably looking at going through it with about 315 or 335. You don't want the weight to be, so heavy that it's throwing you out of whack every single time. You don't want to be, rounding over a ton with each lift. You want to make sure your form is good and clean and concise. So movement number 1 is going to be a regular deadlift. If you are used to pulling sumo, go ahead and pull sumo for the first movement. Second movement, pull conventional. If you're used to pulling conventional, the second movement is sumo. Your third movement, and that movement's going to be done for 8 to 12 reps. Your third movement for the day is going to be a stiff leg deadlift, and then you're out of there. Or stiff leg deadlift, and then we'll even throw in a bent over row. That's a lot of pulling for the day. That's a lot of work. If you can't get stronger from that, you won't be able to get stronger from anything. Hopefully you guys see, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be, there's nothing crazy about it. Where would you progress from there if you wanted to, continue with this program? I would say just lower the reps, go from 5 reps, go to 4 reps in another week, and then go to 3 reps, and then go to 2 reps. And then, maybe take 1 more week and then kind of test out some of your maxes and see where your strength is. You should be quite a bit stronger than where you started. You could even ride out each week for maybe about 2 weeks. You could do the 5x5s for about 2 weeks, and you can do 5 sets of 4 for about 2 weeks, and so on. And you can kind of ride them out, and you can make the program, you can elongate that program a little bit. And you want to increase the weight on the bar each week, but don't increase it so much that your form gets screwed up. One of the key components and one of the most general things anyone could ever tell you about strength training is you shouldn't look like you're falling apart. You shouldn't look like you're dying. You shouldn't miss reps. You shouldn't miss reps in your training. The strongest people I've ever known, the strongest people I've ever seen, they don't miss reps in training. Stan the Rhino Efforting, Ed Cohn, a lot of these guys, they don't miss reps. I asked Ed Cohn, I said, how often did you miss in the gym and how often did you max out? He said, I never missed a weight in the gym and I never maxed out. He only maxed out on the platform. So let that sink in. You know, chew on that. Ed Coan's the strongest lifter of all time. No one will ever even come close to the guy. The weights that guy lifted, it was absolutely insane. So that should really mean something to you, and that should really be of value. And Ed Coan is somebody that used overhead presses, bench presses, bent over rows, squats, deadlifts, all the basics. You do not need to be spending hours on end in the gym, especially when you're new to it. As you start to get stronger, it might be harder and harder for you to get better at it, so it might take some time. So anyway, that's some of the advice on how to get stronger. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Strength is never weakness, weakness is never strength. Catch you all later.